One of the worst feelings a man can have is the feeling of hopelessness, of sensing that the future, the expectations of what's to come is not going to be fruitful, that you feel like you've fucked up, you're dwelling on the past, and you feel like there's nothing to live for. That is one of the worst spots a man can be at in life. And if you go down this path and you're acting out in this way, that becomes an everyday reality, where you feel like you're living a shell of yourself. You know your potential is far, far greater than what you're doing right now, but due to these actions, due to these addictions, you can't seem to change it. And the worst part is, when you're living like this and you're seeing everything go bad, your expectation of the future decreases. You set lower standards for yourself, and sometimes you don't hit them. And you get into this feedback loop where you expect negative results because that's what's happened in the past, and they come to be true. And it only gets you to a point where there's just nothing to live for. You feel depressed, and you're just walking through life trying to survive. And when you're in this state of mind, it's almost impossible to change because you're blind to all the opportunities that might just be right in front of you, because you're dwelling on all of the pain, on all the suffering, and all the past mistakes. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to actually change that, because this is one of the biggest consequences of going and acting out and having this problem in your life. And I'll start it off with the story of how I learned this and how I've helped guys do the exact same thing. When I was going through this and I was acting out on a frequent basis, I felt demoralized. I felt like a shell of myself, and I would always dwell in the past, right? And it was impossible to break out of because, I just had this negative outlook on life. And even if there was opportunities in front of me, and oftentimes there were in retrospect, I wouldn't be able to capitalize on them because I was too stuck in my ways, too depressed, just in a bad state mentally. And this is something that I see all the time with clients, right? And it kind of shows up in different ways. It shows up in not having a clear future planned, right? You don't see a lot of great expectations for the future. You just feel like you're trying to survive. One of the major perspective shifts that guys have when they're going through the recovery process is that they usually have a completely different outlook on life than when they were initially, struggling with this. And that was kind of the reality. It goes from a very negative way of thinking to a very positive way of thinking. They view themselves in two completely different lights. When you're acting out consistently, it's impossible to not have low self-esteem and low confidence. When you're in that state, you can't really enjoy life, right? Your relationships are going to struggle. Your business or your work is going to struggle because you're not living up to those expectations. I can go on and on and on. You're just in a bad state because you view yourself as a bad person. Now, when you break free and you learn all the lessons that you needed to learn to get to the next level, you'll learn skill sets to be able to use kind of this entire recovery process as a stepping stone to greater wins in your life. You start to view yourself as someone who's capable, right? You start to, understand that, hey, if I can get through this, I can get through anything because of the skills that I've learned, the person who I've become. Like, I have dominant control over my life. It shows up, in all the results. The relationships get better, the productivity increases, I feel more confident, a bunch of stuff. You have to do this intentionally. You don't just magically get clean and change your viewpoint of yourself, right? You have to start to view yourself in a different light if you can even get to the next level, right? I think it's a requirement to get clean. If you go 90 days clean, hypothetically, but you don't change your perspective on yourself, it's only a matter of time before you go and fall back into your old way of being. And again, it's just because you feel like you don't deserve a better future, or you have a lot of limiting beliefs, or, there's just some things that aren't aligned with that new lifestyle that you actually had to deliberately change. And that actually might be a reason why you're slipping back up. A lot of people, the recovery kind of looks like this. There's highs and lows. And maybe one of the reasons why you haven't been successful and been able to actually sustain results is because of the things I'm about to share with you right now. There's a couple of ways to actually change this thinking, and I'm seeing a massive importance on this as of recently inside of coaching, where this is something that is so predominant that this needs to be focused on heavily inside of the recovery process. Now, let me give you some actionable advice now that you understand the concept. You have to find the silver lining. You have to look at the other side of the coin and start to change your perspective on current pains and problems in your life, and also past pains and problems or even failures or setbacks, and change your thinking around it. Because a lot of guys, if they have a pain agent in their life, stress, boredom, isolation, relationship issues, dating issues, anything, right? Humans suffer in many different ways. Any pain or problem in your life, if you view that as a challenge or a setback or something negative, you're going to want to go and escape from it. And you've trained yourself over the years to just do that. That if you experience the pain and the downsides of these problems, I need to run to something. Pornography, escorts, consuming technology, whatever the case is, binge eating, drinking, smoking. You need to escape to something, and you need to change that response. And the only way to actually do this consistently and actually want to change your response to these pains is by changing your perspective. If you still view it as a challenge, sure, maybe you can handle the pain agent, but you can't expect yourself to do that in the future. You need to view all challenges, setbacks, failures, pain agents as opportunities, as something that's going to teach you a lesson or get you to the next level. And until you genuinely believe that, you're going to still want to go and escape, and you're not going to consistently handle those pains and problems in your life. Given the topic, I can kind of shoot you some ideas about how to do this, but it's on your own to kind of apply this stuff, right? And this is going to be very difficult, especially on your own, because you're going against your natural way of thinking. It's going to be intentional. It's going to be slow. Again, especially if you're doing this on your own, but you need to commit to this for the long run if you actually want to break free and develop skill sets that allow you to sustain those results. So let me give you some tips. Now, there's really like two things that you can do if you're experiencing a pain or problem in the moment, right? So if you're experiencing, let's say, you're experiencing loneliness and boredom over the weekend, you feel a little bit lonely, and your perspective on all those problems is that you kind of feel like a loser. You're not going out with friends. You don't have anything with a girl that you should be doing. You feel like you're wasting opportunities. You're being alone. It's not what you used to do. Like maybe that's an issue going on. There's probably going to be some thoughts that pop into your head, maybe even subconscious, that are like, man, what are you doing? Like, are you really going to be alone on a weekend yet again? There's so much more that you should be doing, right? And all these negative thoughts start to pop up, and it lowers your self-esteem because your perspective on the problem is negative. But there's one thing that you can do to that. You can challenge some of these beliefs, because a lot of these belief sets, their logic isn't really sound, and you can shoot those kind of rationalizations or these negative beliefs down and kind of show yourself, hey, this is not true, right? Or what you can do, and I would say this is the better thing to do, is show how that pain right then and there in the moment is an opportunity for you to learn something or grow as a person. So what that allows you to do is change that perspective of the problem, and it makes you want to actually take action and handle it effectively. So let's say, instead of kind of dwelling on that whole pain that I just kind of brought up, let's say you said to yourself, well, right now I have, time that I control, where I can make the most of this time and energy that I have right now, and I can be very intentional about it. So what can I work on? What are some opportunities that I can use right now with my time that's going to lead to fulfillment or fun or something along those lines? And that actually gives you a baseline to actually solve that. Very kind of simple kind of, example, but you get the point, right? You want to change your perspective, view the other side of the coin, find the silver lining, and change your perspective to make you believe that these challenges that you're facing right now in the moment are just simply opportunities to grow as a man and get better over time. It's not a simple thing that you just do once, right? I wish it was. You have to do this on a day-to-day basis, and to be very intentional about your thoughts. Are these thoughts aligned with a negative perspective of this problem? Do I need to change this? Do I need to remind myself that this is an opportunity? And the thing is, you might not want to do this. You might want to dwell and kind of, like sulk in it. It's very easy to do so and to kind of feel bad for yourself, but you have to kind of step up and start to change your thinking around this. I believe journaling is a great way to go about this, right? Something that I've leveraged to kind of change my perspective on problems, and I still do it to this day. If I'm kind of going through something, I need to remind myself of, hey, how is this an opportunity to get better? And I'll write it down, right? And I'll remind myself of that. And if I do have those challenges pop back up, I just remind myself that the exercise I already did, maybe a week ago in that journaling session. So that can also be extremely effective. And I'll give that to you as homework if you're someone who's kind of going through this and struggling the same way. Now, something that I've alluded to that is very true is that this is difficult to do. It's going to take time. You're rewiring a response to a particular trigger. This trigger of this pain agent and viewing it in a negative light is something that you've probably done for years. It's not going to come natural to you. You're probably not going to feel confident in the way that you handle things. And if you want to actually feel confident that you're learning a skill set and you're changing your belief sets around this problem, and honestly developing skill sets that are going to allow you to sustain freedom, what I'd like you to go and do is go down and book a call with myself. We'll go over your situation. We'll talk about some of these things. There's resources on the other page after you book a call to kind of show you what this process looks like a little bit more in detail. Talk about it on a call, give you some feedback, give you some resources. And if I feel like I can help you, man, inside of coaching, I'll show you what that looks like. But again, no pressure. I'm just doing this to help people at the end of the day. So do yourself that favor. Don't go through this alone. Get some help, get some direction, because at the very least, you'll be walking away from that call just with newfound clarity about what to do based off of where you're at right now. So with that said, guys, stay strong, take action, and I'll see you boys in the next one.